Obviously, I love the industry. Like, I'm in it. I wanted to be in it so deep. I opened up a restaurant. I love the industry, but I have had moments where I'm like, why am I doing this? Mostly it was just like stress and how much stress it is running a restaurant, and it doesn't really need to be there at all if you have great organisation.
Hello there, everybody. It is Dani Valent here with you for an episode of Dirty Linen. Now, it is a new year, and I know what that means. It means new podcast listeners. I love podcasts because they are fun for the people who listen to them already, but there is so much potential because most people don't listen to podcasts yet. If you're a long-time listener, please tell your friends about Dirty Linen. You could even leave a review on whichever podcast app you are listening to this. And if you are a new listener, I would love to just tell you a little bit about what we do here. My name is Dani Valent. I am a Melbourne-based food journalist down in the southern parts of Australia. I am a long-time restaurant critic, food enthusiast, hospitality advocate. If it is to do with food and connection, I am all about it. On this podcast, we talk to people all around the world, but mostly in Australia, about the hospitality world. Generally, well, we know we have a lot of people in the hospitality industry that listen to this podcast, but also a lot of people that are interested in food, love to eat out, want to learn about this world that we all intersect with through our daily lives. But it is so mysterious and so interesting, so multifaceted, so diverse. So we dig into a lot of the issues, the good, sometimes the bad, things that happen in hospitality. I am thrilled to be at the beginning of another year of doing this podcast, which launched in 2020. As a longtime food journalist, it's been a really interesting process for me to, I guess, expose the workings, sometimes as clunky as they are, of my brain. Journalists ask questions, but we don't normally, I suppose, display our workings. The story comes out nice and neat in the end, hopefully, but you don't know how hard it was for me to get there. But on this podcast, it is me, it is raw, it is real. And I just love that I'm always learning from my guests and sharing their stories with you out there in listener land. People often ask me how I choose my guests. Well, I can promise you that I've never had a guest come to the podcast like this before. I met Rachael Boon, who owns Jungle Fowl in Port Douglas, very randomly at a farmer's market in Tokyo a few months ago. So that is a very good way to welcome you, Rachael, to the podcast.
That was so random and also very cool. And I was fangirling after you. I was like, oh my gosh, should I say hello or should I just put my head down and look at these beautiful apples, or should I say hello? So I did, and I'm glad that I did because here we are today. And I love your work.
Well, thank you so much. And I'm really glad that you said hello, and I'm looking forward to learning more about your work. I would also say this is the first time this podcast has been to Port Douglas. So thanks for welcoming us to your Queensland town.
Representing the north, the tropical Port Douglas suburb. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I love it. So, Rachael, tell us a bit about Jungle Fowl.
So Jungle Fowl, we opened Jungle Fowl in 2022, yeah. And it came from so I had my first restaurant, Oaks Kitchen and Garden, which was an 8-seater in my garden shed, like huge shed on my property where you can see my garden, and then have this beautiful lunch by Ben Wallace, my business partner. And that went off like, it was amazing. And then we had a lot of damage happen to that restaurant because it is in a converted shed. The water got in to parts of our commercial kitchen, and we tried really hard to fix it, but we couldn't. So we opened Jungle Fowl really quickly, got the lease on a place on Wharf Street in Port Douglas, which is like the main restaurant street of our town. Because I know the old owners of the old restaurant. I was like, hey guys, do you want to keep doing your restaurant? Because I heard on the grapevine that they were like, no, we want to get out. And I was like, can I get it? And so it was such a quick turnaround of having Oak's Kitchen and Garden and honouring our up and coming bookings with them to then flipping it into Jungle Fowl and creating this fun, vibrant, supporting local produce, honouring Chef Ben, my business partner's amazing food, and then my flair of this casual, professional dining experience in Far North Queensland. And I think we got the keys in, I think it was April, I can't even remember, April, and we flipped into operation by July. So it was just such a crazy turn of events, but I'm so glad it's our third year and we are just loving it, loving the change.
Wow, that is quite an origin story. I mean, I love the idea of this 8-seater in a garden, how like romantic and perfect, and I just instantly want to transport myself there. But how many seats do you have at Jungle Fowl?
So we can seat up to 70 people in one seating, and we usually do about 3 seatings during our busiest time of the year, which is from April to the end of October. Currently now we're in our wet season, so it's very seasonal up here. So currently now we're very quiet. We're about to close our doors for a month and everyone's going on annual leave. And we do only like 50 people a night now during the off season, but during April to end of October it's 160 to 200 covers a night in our little place. Yeah, so it's pretty wild.
Yeah, that's a massive step up, Rachel. So you mentioned Chef Ben. What's your role in the business?
So my role is, I'm owner, I'm very hands-on. I do a lot of the front of house side, so a lot of customer service. We do weekly training with our staff. I paint all over the walls. I'm currently renovating today in our bar room, just doing a new mural in here. I'm just an all-over. I'm also a grower, so I grow all our beetle leaves and lime leaf, the macarot lime and lemongrass. I still have the farm. Our original restaurant is on a 4-acre property that I own, and we grow a lot of the ingredients, herbs for the Jungle Fowl from there, and that's organic. And the name Jungle Fowl actually is honouring my chickens, because I have lots of chickens at my property that help with the soil. So that's where I got the name from. So I'm all over the place, really. Sometimes I'm a dishy.
I love that. I can certainly relate to the many hats wearing, piecing together of a career. So what does it mean to you to run a restaurant, to be presenting a cuisine, to be looking after people both as a business owner and also as a host in a restaurant? What's the sort of threads that are really important to you, Rachel?
I think that's what's really important for me, and why I do what I do is because I've always enjoyed dining out myself. And I'll give you a bit of backstory about myself. My father is a restaurateur as well, and he opened the first Thai restaurant in Port Douglas in the late 90s. And I used to come up to this town from where my mum lives in Sydney, because my parents are divorced, so I live with my mum. But I used to come up here to Port Douglas on my school holidays and work for my dad in his Thai restaurant. And so for me, and my mum's a chef, so I've always been in this industry, whether I liked it or not, and lucky I love it, and I liked it, and I stuck with it. And I've worked for many, many people, not just my family in Sydney and Melbourne. And what I wanted to do when I could finally have my own restaurant was give people an experience that they felt welcome and that they enjoyed, and that they felt like, oh, I'll never forget that experience, because I've had those experiences where it's like a sunny afternoon in Manly and you've got beautiful seafood, a lovely rosé, and you're sitting there and going like, this is a moment, like this is the vibe. And food just brings people together, and when people are eating, they're happy. And I just wanted to bring that to Port Douglas in a style of what is growing here as well, and like to honour like the produce, the tropical Southeast Asian produce we can grow in this climate, and also amazing Australian seafood and meat and like other beautiful vegetables and stuff from the tropics. So I think when I was going into it, with my first original restaurant, I wanted to do that, like sort of educate what we can grow up here and what we can use. And then with Jungle Fowl, I wanted to broaden that and be like, okay, well, we only could seat 8 people at Oak's Kitchen and Garden. Now I can seat up to 200. And it's like, that's the vibe, and it's trying to stay consistent with that welcoming, come on in, nice vibes, lovely service because our staff, are happy at their job. Food is consistent because we're using lovely produce that we can get fresh daily. And I just love compliments, to be honest with you.
When it all boils down to it, that's just, I suppose, the proof that you've made someone happy. So it's that endorsement. Why wouldn't you love that? Right. What are some dishes, Rachael, that you feel really speak to all the things you're talking about, the local produce and that sense of bounty and generosity?
So we grow the beetle leaves. They just they just love it up here in tropical North Queensland, and it's a Southeast Asian herb. And so we pick those every day. In the morning I pick them and I bring them to the chefs, and they're fresh because I go around and I look for the younger ones so that they have a lovely flavour. And that beetle leaf is so delicious, and my favourite one is actually the pomelo, so the vegan option, because we're using like quite a bitter, tart citrus that grows here, and then you wrap that leaf around. It's just got crunchy toasted coconut, like fresh lime, peanut, and a little bit of chili, not too much, so really well balanced. And that just is a flavour bomb, like that just pops. So if you begin with that, you're just going to have a good time. I've got people, like repeat guests, that come up to Port Douglas every year from Melbourne, and they have their holiday from the winter, and they're like, we came back for the beetle leaves. I'm like, I hear you. Like I hear you. Yeah. So that's my favourite.
Well, I might have to get in one of their suitcases.
Yes, you will. We'd love to feed you.
I notice on your website, Rachael, you say, you've got a work with us link, get in contact if you'd like to join our team. But then you say something that I don't see often. It says, we offer ongoing training in hospitality. Tell me about that.
Yes. So for me, I feel like that is the most important aspect of my business. I love to train people that want to work with us, because we are always innovating. So like we change our menus constantly. We change our wine, drinks and food menu to suit seasons and produce. And I believe so wholeheartedly that if you allow people to make the first step, say it's their first job in the industry and they feel really intimidated because they don't know what ingredients are in Southeast Asian cuisine or North Tropical, Port Douglas, that by allowing ongoing training, that they do feel more confident in their role, and then they will then give customers a really lovely service. So every new staff member gets an orientation. It's everything from our food ingredients, our wine list, but most importantly, it's a sequence of service. So I've taken all my experience in the industry and getting a lot of new jobs, and I always felt like the lack thereof of an introduction into the restaurant's story and why and how. And when I was starting out, I'm a quick learner, I'd figure it out, I'd research myself. I think when you're given the tools from your senior management and the owner of the restaurant yourself, and you provide the time and energy to give to the new people coming and your staff, they love that, they respect it, and then they're excited about the product. They're excited to come to work because they feel comfortable, The worst thing is not feeling comfortable in your job, and I think in hospitality you're working with the public and you're working with chefs and and it can be quite a high pressure work environment. So if you have the knowledge to answer questions on the spot, you then feel confident enough to provide that service that I think Jungle Fowl is really good at. And that's a lot of good feedback we get all the time is like, oh, the service is really nice. And I don't want fine dining. Like, we're not a white, tablecloth restaurant. We're very fun. We're very casual, but we are professional. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think, if you, as you say, if you engage your staff in the story of the business and they feel like they're able to present it, the sort of side by side with you rather than under you, then I think that sort of empowerment, it's going to make for better service for sure. It's going to make them feel more comfortable. Hopefully they'll stay in the industry. There's, endless positives to it. What do you think, Rachael, about the hard skills, clearing a table elegantly? What about, are you big on that sort of stuff?
Yes, I am big on that, definitely. So I sort of brought together, so I'll say this, it's just a little tool that we use. I was noticing lots of mess on tables because it's a sharing concept. So we're family dining style, lots of food, lots of sharing bowls and cutlery and spoons. So food would be on the tables, and I'm okay, so the first thing we do is we train our front of house to, use a fresh cloth and wipe down the tables before dessert. And just that sort of attention to detail that is missed in other places. And also clearing in a way where you're observing what the guests are up to. May I take that? Are you finished with this? Having an interaction with people, not just taking things abruptly or not taking things at all. And I think that attention to detail, making my sections slightly smaller, whereas I've worked in restaurants and they've been quite big, you can't keep up. It's just wild. So I think having my sections smaller and then having a lot of floats as well. I do run around the restaurant as a float a lot, and my main job is usually clearing and resetting actually. And for me, it's just such peace of mind having nice and tidy areas and great flow. And also just the way I've designed it, I have 2 areas to do glasses so that there's not a build-up of glassware on our bar, so it never looks so cluttered. And I think clear head is great when you're working, so you can concentrate on the most important thing, which is being attentive to the customers and getting extra drink orders in, etc., and not worrying too much about clearing dirty tables if you are the section waitress or waiter. So yeah, just having floats is the main thing. And I think when people work with me and also my restaurant managers, they see the sort of level that we expect of that, and then they start to mimic. I guess it's you can't really write everything down in training. You have to do physical training. You have to be there with them to show them the way, I guess, is another thing I like to say is let me show you. I can't just write down, here's a training manual. I need to show you what I'm talking about. And that is also good because we do a trial, a weekly trial with all new staff, and it's paid, and they get to sort of get an introduction into Jungle Fowl, running food and clearing plates, and then they go, I see that sort of flow that you're after. I see the attention to detail that you're wanting here. And then we put them in a section. So it's a tiered training execution we do here at Jungle Fowl before even they take orders. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really organised and amazing. I think, hospitality is pretty tough. People are watching what they're spending, diners watching what they're spending, businesses are noticing costs going up. It's a pretty tricky equation. And I think because of that, things like floating staff members that might be considered extra or a luxury aren't always employed, and it does lead to different kinds of pressures. I mean, how are you finding your desire to train and keep things calm and organised and the financial pressures of hospitality?
Yes, that's a great question. So yes, that's true. A lot of people can't afford to put extra hands on. So that's why cross-training is the best thing. So for example, my restaurant managers or seniors, supervisors, anyone senior that's been here for a while, we cross-train everybody, so that they can do the bar, or they could do a section, or they could float. So it's sort of, I think within your team, if you give enough time to that cross training and you cover all your bases, you'll find that people can take orders, or they can clear a table, or they can also run the bar if someone calls in sick. So sort of, in a way, I know it seems like I'm employing more than I should, but I'm actually training them as we go so that they could do multiple jobs, not just section waiters or waitresses. It's multiple skills. So I think in a way you actually do cover costs because you've got people that can do multiple roles and help out where they need to be, or take a drink order, or I just think it works better to be flexible like that. And that's just my experience from being, okay, in my other roles and other businesses I've worked for, you're just doing that role tonight. And I was like, my section might be so slow and quiet, but they're like, no, you're strictly in that section. Whereas my colleague might have been under the pump and needs support. And I think it all just comes down to a lot of communication, a lot of planning, and then execution. So your leader's executing, oh, okay, I think we're going to be really busy tonight. I need you to do X, Y, Z on the go. Because that's what restaurants are. You don't know exactly what's going to happen. You could have 20 walk-ins at 6:30 and you've got to say yes, obviously, and you've got to be able to go, all right, now you're in that section. You're not just running and floating anymore. We've opened up that section. You're going to do that now. And they're like, cool.
Yeah. I guess if you built that confidence, and I suppose, and think also as you're talking, I'm and remembering back to you saying you're turning tables a couple of times a night. I suppose the more efficient your team is, the more money you can have coming in as well. So it's sort of all, it's like a synergy.
Yeah, like upselling, if you've got 70 covers that are booked in, that's brilliant. 70 butts are coming in to sit on those chairs and they're going to want to have the experience of your restaurant, and you want to get them a drink. You need to offer them what water they'd like. You need to offer a first drink, have the ability to explain, this is a delicious cocktail. We make this syrup from this XYZ. And, those sales, or they make such a huge difference at the end of the year when you're doing all your costs and your outgoings and everything. And as owning a restaurant, there's a fine line. It's make or break with the simplest change. So for us, an example of our first year, we noticed there was no one coming to our restaurant at 5 o'clock. We was like, oh my gosh, this is sad. Like, we've got all these staff standing around. We've got no butts on seats at 5. What are we going to do? I was like, we need to do a happy hour. Like, we need to do something that's going to attract people that aren't ready for dinner yet, but maybe will stay, that just want a snack, because it's still 5 o'clock. It's pretty sunny up here in Queensland at 5 o'clock. It's like, what do they want? Okay, cool. So we did happy hour. We still do it. We won't change. We'll always do it. Happy hour from 5 to 6. We do a few little bites, like a couple of dollars off. We do half-price cocktails, like da-da-da-da-da. It's really fun. We've started a vibe. People know about it. They talk about it. And we look crazy. Like at 5 o'clock, sometimes we're so full and people are just walking past like, what's that place, And it's sort of just, that's how it sparks. I feel like people never want to go into an empty restaurant. It's always like, oh, that place is quiet. So if you can just try and promote like an option for people. And also, people don't have a lot of money. Currently, our economy is like a bit sad, and like everybody's like, oh, like mortgages are high, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone's feeling it. Like, so offer something for people that they can be like, oh, it's Friday night, let's go get one cocktail from Jungle Fowl and some snacks. Easy. That'll be our weekend. And I think if you can offer that, something from your product that people won't usually try, they'll come and try it, and then they'll tell their friends about it, and you'll just start something from there, innovate.
Rachel, I feel like a lot of this conversation has sort of, in a way, has been about workplace culture. I really get a feeling from you about what it's like to work for you, but I'd love to hone in on it specifically, because it has been, and rightfully so, such a big conversation in food media and the hospitality industry for over the past year, especially. You've worked in a lot of places. What have you seen? What have you wanted to change?
Oh, so obviously I love the industry. Like, I'm in it. I wanted to be in it so deep. I opened up a restaurant. I love the industry, but I have had moments where I'm like, why am I doing this? And it was usually because of people like my colleagues and stress. It was never really about I've had some customers like really make me have a horrible day, but mostly it was just like stress and how much stress it is running a restaurant, and it doesn't really need to be there at all if you have great organization. And yes, there are going to be days where your plumbing breaks and XYZ happens, but you don't need to take that stress out onto your colleagues or your employees. And you just need to manage that better. And that could be simple, like forcing, for example, my chefs constantly, like old school chef mentality, like don't want to sit down and have a break. Don't want to, we have had moments where I'm like, okay, you need to stay within your hours. Like, you need to do this many hours. You can't be doing this overtime. We need to figure out a way that it works. Do we need another prep chef in, because people burn out, people quit when they burn out. And also I don't want a toxic work environment, which I've had in my past. And what happens if there's a toxic work environment? You leave those places, because we're all human and we all want to just feel happy at work so that we can feel good when we go home to our lives and not at work. And so by providing a non-toxic, de-stressed work environment, that was my goal when opening up Jungle Fowl, because life's too short to be stressing out about simple things of dining, and there has to be solutions for everything. Say, for example, like I mentioned before, glasses everywhere. Like, you're selling a lot of drinks, a lot of cocktails, like the bartender's trying to make them. They can't always clean them. So we have a scullery out the back that I was like, okay, let's just do glasses out here. They're a way you can concentrate better on your job at hand, which is making the cocktails, not cleaning the glasses. And in the past, I've had bartenders just lose it because they're just like, I don't have any da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, don't come at me. I don't know what you're talking about. And then I've had chefs, where they're so cranky and abusive even to me as a young waitress. And I thought, I'm never going to put up with that. It's never going to be my jam at any place that I operate or own. And so it was early on, Keelan is our head chef. He is the most beautiful soul in the world. And Ben is my business partner, but Keelan runs Jungle Fowl's kitchen, and he is a sweetheart, but also such a professional, and he would never lose it. And I think when you're employing people in your business, you need to employ and hire according to nature and ego. And if they get our vibe, then, and they understand we're not ego here, that we're just all trying to get the job done to a level and honour that level, we'll have a great service. And I think because he is the leader of the kitchen, it has just made its way down to the core of the kitchen, and everyone's so wonderful and lovely and support each other. And it's the same from the front too. We all support each other. If there's a mistake, mistakes happen, we just sort it out. We don't have chefs throwing things or anything like that. We don't have front of house making lots of mistakes either, because they respect the kitchen and they don't want to cause more work for those guys either. So because the front of house are respected by the chefs, the front of house also don't make many mistakes. It sort of works hand in hand, just that ethos of caring.
It's so interesting to me how we talk about workplace culture, and the first thing you talked about is structure and systems and being calm and organised. And it wasn't so much about values, but then you spoke also about the way that the values are intertwined with the business. I mean, do you really see those two different aspects? Are they equally crucial?
Definitely. I think definitely 100%. I think like when, especially if you say you're just coming into a place and you're like, okay, like you're coming in for your job. And I think when people are fresh and they're given the time and they're treated with kindness. My grandma always said this to me, treat people the way you like to be treated. If you treat people the way that you would like to be treated when you're first starting a job, or if you've stayed at your job the whole time with like respect and open communication, XYZ, it just feels like friendships, work friendships, where you're like, oh, I get you. Oh, I understand, no problem. Like my restaurant manager, Catalina, she's brilliant. She's like, oh, Rach, can I have Sunday off? My friend's having a birthday. I was like, yep, no worries. Let me just work this out. No problem. We've cross-trained our supervisor. She can close at night. I can be there doing a service. No problem. Like flexibility is key. And people that can feel open enough to tell me, oh, can I have that day off? Instead of calling in sick and leaving me in a lurch because they wanted to go to the party, but they didn't feel comfortable enough to be open and say like, oh, may I have that day off? Like, no problem if I can't. I'm like, yep, no worries. I feel like providing that culture of just like an open space that people just want to work and like they just want to come do the best they can and then they're like, okay, thank you, bye. Like, it's just good. And it's like in the past, I've had like, I felt like I couldn't ask my managers for one weekend off or one day off. And I thought, what am I doing? Like, I've missed so many birthdays, so many big events in my life because it was sort of this culture back in my day. Oh, you'll never have a weekend off. Don't you even ask for one. Don't even think about it. And it's like, oh, okay, well, what is this? I get paid under $20 an hour and I have to work every weekend. And then when I ask for something, it's like, no. So you're either going to call in sick or you're going to come to work so hungover and do a horrible job, Yeah.
Yeah. So, it is a crazy mentality, isn't it? I suppose what you're saying is you don't have to sacrifice your life to have a meaningful, fulfilling, successful career in hospitality.
Exactly. And I got told, like, so when I first mentioned all these things, like to friends, colleagues, like people that own restaurants as well, I was like, this is what I want to do. They're like laughing at me, like, what? Like, you want to be able to do this? I'm like, yeah, I want to be able to like honor people's lives. I want to be able to pay people correctly. If they want annual leave, I want them to take annual leave. Like, I don't want pressure like I've had. And honestly, it's working. Like, we retain the same team over and over. We have staff that are on, like, a lot of our staff are traveling. They've got like working holiday visa and they're all coming back to work with Jungle Fowl because they know like the job is good, the energy is good here. It works. If you just remember that we all just want to have a life, we all want to just enjoy our life. And it's none of these phone calls like, oh, you got to cover such and such and X, Y, Z on your day off. Like, that's another thing about Jungle Fowl is like we don't open Monday, Tuesday. So everybody's got the same days off because what we noticed was we opened 6 days on our first year and it was a bit of a headache, like having to cover our head chef all the time and then cover XYZ. And we worked out the figures that actually across the board we made the same amount of money opening 5 days than we did 7 with wage, taxes, et cetera, and costs and everything. So we just pushed it together and made it 5 good days and the same 5 team members.
Yeah, I love it. I love that flexibility, that openness to questioning what you're doing and to make changes that might seem counterintuitive but actually work. So inspiring, Rachael. I just love hearing the way that you run this business. I'm sure it makes the food that much more delicious. In the few minutes we've got left, can we just geek out about Japan?
Oh my gosh, I'm addicted. Like, this is it for me. I have never been to Japan ever before, and because I live near Cairns, so we have direct flights over to Tokyo. Brilliant. Easy, 7 hours, done. I feel like You arrive, everything is so immaculate and beautiful, and you just, everything, just like, oh, food, I can't, I've got to go back. I've got to go back this year. How great was that food market? They had a goat there.
They did have a goat. Yeah. It was very cute. They had an animal adoption thing out the back as well.
I know. I have a rescue dog. I have a rescue puppy called Poppy. And I was just like, can we take one home? I was like, oh my goodness. So I thought that was super cute. I was like, oh my gosh.
Tell me about one amazing, life-altering food experience that you had over in Japan, Rachel.
Okay, so random was in like the business district, one of the business districts where I was staying. I don't know the suburb, but we were just like wandering for hours, and like we came across like people were going on their lunch breaks, like business women and men just like hustle. And I was like, what is this random place? It's like tiny, had all the plastic food displayed in a cabinet out the front, green curtains, don't know the name of it, don't know. I took a photo. Saved it on Google Maps, walk through the door. It's run by all these little old ladies, and it is like decked out so cute, like old photos and like cute little ceramic Japanese things everywhere, and tiny little tables with lace tablecloths. Everything's divine, packed. I'm like, we're going here. My partner Chrissy and I was like, we're going here for lunch. Go there, best pork, like cutlet, beautiful, and soup, salad combo. That's why the business people were all there lining up, because the combo is just like gorgeous, and you get this little potato salad chilled. That was my favourite. I went to a few really beautiful places. That was my favourite out of all of them.
I think the places that you stumble upon, you know, that's where the locals are going. That is so special.
Don't worry about any Instagram like lining up ones. Just go to the random, most random little places. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so gorgeous. The best.
I love it. I'm gonna have to raid your Google Maps next time I go to Tokyo.
I'll send it to you. I'll send it to you.
Rachel, I'm so happy that you came up and said hello to me at the farmers market. And it's led to this beautiful conversation, which I think is going to be really inspiring and empowering for lots of people. Thank you for everything that you do. It sounds like it's such a joyful place, and I can't wait it's a good excuse for me to get to Port Douglas this winter and get some sun and taste those fresh beetle leaves.
I'll get you a spicy margarita. Get off the plane, boom, 5 o'clock, here we go.
I'm all about it.
No, it is. Thank you. I can't believe I was like, yeah, should I say hello? It's like, yeah, I'm glad I did.
That's great.
How could you not? How could you not? We were so far away from our homes.
I know. Yeah. I love it. Perfect serendipity. All right. All the best. Enjoy that month away from the restaurant.
I know. Thank you for your time. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinenat deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This